I've heard from a lot of motorcycle riders that they aren't comfortable bopping around in a big city, which is such a shame because motorcycles are one of the best ways to carve through busy city traffic. In an effort to encourage those of you who tend to avoid riding in big cities to give it a shot, I'm going to show you the many perks of city riding and how to mitigate the additional risks that come along with dense traffic. Now, of course, my riding style, and so this channel, isn't dedicated to maximizing safety. So when you're ready to level up, or for those of you that are already comfortable riding in the city, I'm going to show you my strategies for leveraging a motorcycle size and exploiting traffic patterns to get through cities as efficiently as possible. If we have the time, I might even be able to discuss some of the advice I saw from articles and YouTube videos that I thought was rather strange. I don't remember it. Hold on, let me check my notes real quick. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Honking at every car you drive by?
What I'm going to do now going forward is I'm actually going to honk at every single car before I approach the car. Corners, take it, like I said, take that to the track. And I tell you, the best thing you can do is when you see a car getting ready to turn, honk the horn before you approach them to get their attention. Do it for every single car that's getting ready to turn.
Okay, stay tuned. Cities are a unique riding experience and offer a dynamic set of challenges. Obviously, we got space issues since cities are more densely populated. That means there are more cars, trucks, buses, trolleys, bicycles, uniwheel, whatever the fuck those are, leading to more densely packed roads and more traffic. Physical space is a premium in big cities, everywhere from living space to roads to parking. And in a world where space is hard to come by, having a smaller, nimble vehicle provides a lot of advantages. If you're rich enough to live inside the city, maybe you could just live that Uber Lyft lifestyle, storing your Maserati until the weekends when you have your Coke and ecstasy fueled benders after a hard week trading Tesla options.
You're able to do drugs during the day and still function, still do your job.
Well, how the fuck else would you do this job? Cocaine and hookers, my friend.
But most people don't make that much Skrilla, so they're forced to live 10, 20, or even 40 miles away from where they need to be 5 or more days a week. What turned my motorcycle riding from hobby to primary form of transportation was that I was trying to find a way to cut down my 35 to 50 minute per direction commute into and out of downtown Seattle. Most of my initial reduction in commute time was from the commuter or high occupancy vehicle lanes large cities create to incentivize lower traffic by giving preferential treatment to motorcycles and carpools. Seattle has a whole 4-lane highway system that changes directions in the morning and afternoon that's designated as the HOV or motorcycle only. Parking is also its own bag of nightmares in most cities. Street parking is the norm, and often the cheapest, closest option. But for those reasons, it's highly contested. A motorcycle makes it easier to fit in smaller spaces right outside your destination, or where some moron has parked halfway into a second spot, preventing another car from fitting. But not its skinny little scoot. If you watch my video on motorcycle theft, you'll remember I recommended parking in garages when in cities because it can reduce the risk your bike is stolen. But the other advantage is that motorcycles often get reduced prices and better locations in parking garages. Now, you didn't hear this from me, but I've been told that some rapscallions say they just drive around parking enforcement barriers in garages and avoid the fees altogether. I've never done this and would discourage all of you from doing it, even though there's basically no way they could ever punish you for it since most of these garages are all automated at this point anyway. These are hard times, and these companies that use their massive hordes of money to buy up properties just to charge you fees and rent in order to access it are really hurting right now. Will somebody please think of the landlords? Probably the biggest one I can think of is California legalizing lane splitting, which I think they had to do because too many motorcyclists were dying of heat stroke in that godforsaken LA rush hour traffic. Colorado and Washington exclude motorcycles from paying tolls on some roads. In locales surrounded by water, like Seattle, we have a system of ferries to transport people and cars from the small islands into the city. For a car, you have to line up sometimes hours before you're able to get onto the ferry, but motorcycles skip ahead and even get cheaper fares. This is obviously not a comprehensive list of every advantage, but what I'm trying to show you is that motorcycles can dramatically reduce commute time and costs of traveling in a big city. It's not all roses, of course, so let's discuss the challenges. City traffic patterns can be complex and challenging, even for people who drive them daily. The first thing I remember being super confused by was how many one-way roads most large cities have. Constant construction is also a common feature of cities, and you can be driving in a lane which suddenly ends in a flagger or a physical barrier. This can add a lot of traffic by cutting down road capacity and leading to more fraught and aggressive merging by everyone around you. It's also common for construction areas to have horrible road conditions, from shitty temporary asphalt, roadways beaten down by heavy machinery, or metal slabs that sit over gaping holes in construction sites. Another traffic reduction strategy cities have been implementing are lanes with vehicle type limitations like buses or bicycles. These can pop up out of nowhere sometimes and can lead drivers to try to make panic lane changes. Sometimes just the layout of how lanes connect to each other through intersection can seem incoherent. For example, in Seattle, there's a major thoroughfare that goes through the heart of downtown that transitions into a bus only during certain hours of the day that's easy to miss or forget.
It says bikes. Are you sure? Are you really sure?
Since I mentioned bicycles, you'll need to share public roads with bicyclists. Now, since we're riding motorcycles, bicycles on the road are no big deal because they leave plenty of room for passing. But I've read enough screeds on Reddit and seen enough cagers gnashing their teeth behind a bike to know it's not something everyone likes to see. I just think of them as low-powered mopeds. Cities also add obstacles to watch out for in the form of increased pedestrian traffic. Although, some people stick to crosswalks and look both ways before crossing. I worked with a dude for years who would put on a high-vis vest every time he walked 3 blocks to get his lunch. Most people who work in downtown, including me, don't give a fuck about jaywalking. It's not that pedestrians are actively trying to disrupt cars or inconvenience drivers, it's usually someone just bolting across the street in between traffic, but there is the occasional lackadaisical wanderer that you'll need to avoid. Remember, even if they end away, pedestrians got the right of way. All these nuances to city traffic lead to a lot more driving mistakes, and not just by other drivers, you're probably going to make some more mistakes too, which means you should crank up your level of defensive riding a few notches from whatever it normally sits at. Let's go over some of the situations that have the highest potential for fuckery and the tactics you should take to mitigate these risks. The most likely place to have an accident is at an intersection, but fortunately there's really only 3 ways for this to happen, and they're all pretty straightforward to manage. The first is the classic left turn across opposite traffic that we've all seen or heard a million horror stories about, where you're riding along when someone turns across your lane in front of you with little to no time to take evasive maneuvers. These accidents also have one of the highest levels of mortality due to the combined speeds between vehicles that collide when traveling opposite directions. The typical broad advice that people give to counter this is slowing down all the time in a city. And sure, that's a way of reducing risk in literally any situation. Duh, but we can be more optimal. The best way to protect yourself from this risk is to gain visibility to opposite direction traffic. Positioning yourself to the inside of the lane, giving a bit of space between you and the car in front of you, and rolling off the throttle until you've passed the intersection gives drivers looking to make a left-hand turn the best chance to see you. But more importantly, provides you the ability to see if the other cars are looking to cross in front of you and the space to make an evasive maneuver if they don't yield to your right of way. The second common intersection collision is perpendicular traffic hitting you as you pass through. For all the reasons I mentioned earlier about how city traffic can kind of be confusing, it's not uncommon for drivers to get distracted and maybe blow through a stoplight, or even to intentionally try to squeeze through a yellow to red turning light. The solution though is simple, and I guarantee that we all learned it by the time we were 5 years old. Look both ways before crossing. This doesn't have to be anything insanely dramatic. As you approach intersections, your visibility down each perpendicular street is likely obstructed by buildings, preventing you from seeing if there are cars who might not stop. As you approach the intersection, roll off the throttle to give yourself time to check both directions. As you get closer to the intersection and can see farther down the perpendicular road, you can start to accelerate until you've hit the point where you wouldn't be able to stop in time to avoid entering the intersection. Once you've hit this point of no return, accelerate a bit through to minimize the amount of time that you're spending in the intersection, assuming you've accounted for pedestrian traffic, of course. The last way to get hit at an intersection is from behind. Although I see people bring it up a lot, in my experience, it's pretty rare. In all my time riding, I can only think of a single time I've had anything like that happen to me, and it was someone who didn't realize they had let off their brake a little bit and so were creeping forward and ended up bumping my rear tire.
I don't believe you.
Yes, drivers are distracted constantly and unaware of their surroundings. But if they're paying attention to anything, it's usually stuff directly in fucking front of them. To account for this risk, some people keep their bikes in gear, hands at the ready to make an escape maneuver at any moment. I think this is a bit intense for something that's very, very, very unlikely. as well as easily mitigated through less conservative methods. The balance I find to mitigate this risk without killing my clutch hand is to ensure that when I come to a stop, my bike is positioned in a way that has a forward escape, usually either side of the lane you're in. And I'm often positioned so far to the edge of a lane that another car could reasonably take up the entire space next to me. After stopping, I'll keep my eyes in the mirrors watching the next vehicle behind me, confirming that it also looks to be coming to a stop. If there aren't any vehicles coming, or once a vehicle does stop, I'll drop it into neutral and just monitor my mirror every few seconds to confirm nothing unexpected is happening, like maybe somebody leaving their vehicle to stick you up. One place you probably should take it slower is anytime you get onto a narrow street packed with cars or other visibility reducing obstacle creating situations. This will usually be places where people are coming and going for day trips, like markets, parks, and so end up with lots of pedestrian flow. These areas can have car doors open up into roadways unexpectedly, kids or pets dart out into the road, or cars entering and exiting parking spaces. Shifting from the densely packed streets, I've developed several strategies that have been effective in keeping me safe in the downtown highways as well. I know this is probably going to sound like an excuse to some people for what they feel like is dangerous driving, but I honestly believe that going at least a little faster than whatever the flow of normal highway traffic around you is smart riding strategy. I am far more capable of managing threats in front of me than I am from behind. I mentioned in a previous video that I purposely avoid mounting my phone to my handlebars to ensure that I have as few visual distractions as possible to take my eyes from the road, and reducing the need to worry about what's coming from behind you allows you to focus more on the higher risk traffic in front of you. As I move forward through traffic, my lane positioning follows an S shape as I enter and leave cars in adjacent lanes' blind spots. I'll position as vertically close to the next car as possible to ensure I'm in their mirror, as well as to try and glance into the driver's eyes to get a sense of if they're looking to make a lane change or if they actively see me. As I get closer to the car, I move to the opposite side of the lane, apexing at the blind spot in order to give myself a buffer to make evasive maneuvers in case the car does decide to come into my lane. The goal is to spend as little time as possible in the driver's blind spot, as well as provide other drivers the best opportunity to see me before I get out of their vision. Another thing I've noticed when watching other motorcyclists, I think I might head check a lot more than most riders, especially if I'm looking to make a move across several lanes of traffic, which is pretty often. As I'm riding and looking to keep moving at a clip faster than the surrounding traffic, I take a moment to scan all the cars around me in order to mentally plot a course through them. Head checking gives me a moment to confirm nothing's in my blind spot and that there's no cars traveling faster than me that I need to account for. Once I'm confident I've assessed all the variables, I decisively make the planned maneuver, then pause to reassess and plan out the next set of moves. Now, if all this sounds too intense for you and you're just trying to grill your way through traffic, great. Just get in either of the outside lanes and position on the very edge to ensure you always have a shoulder to escape to and you'll rarely have a problem. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can think of for the additional risks and steps you can use to mitigate them. I'm sure I forgot stuff, or I'm sure there's things that are specific to cities, and leave a comment if you've got something that you think is important. When you lay it all out written, it sounds like a lot, but as you do it and you get more of a sense of how traffic flows, it becomes muscle memory and instinct. Now, let's talk about the fun part, using a motorcycle to optimize your city traveling. What I'm going to discuss now aren't recommendations or suggestions, they're just ideas for how you could use a motorcycle's innate characteristics to expedite your navigation through cities. Check your local laws and ordinances before you do any of this, and know that by watching this video, you can actually sign a soul-binding contract to not bitch at me if you fuck up and die. Don't haunt me, asshole. I do want to note that although many of these maneuvers are reasonably considered aggressive and might piss off other drivers, justifiably or not, there are things I try to do to mitigate that. Basically, I try to do stuff so that the drivers around me don't feel like they need to make emergency maneuvers to prevent hitting me. I'm not going to go into extreme depth about lane splitting because I've done 2 full videos on lane splitting that you should go watch because I worked really hard on them and I think they're really good. One that broke down the philosophical reasons why lane splitting should be legalized and the other how to do it safely. I know lots of people are hesitant to do it at first, but making the jump to lane splitting is like finally being able to understand raw matrix code and how it changes your entire perspective of how you view roadways.
You get used to it. I don't even see the code. All I see is blonde, brunette, redhead.
You start to see traffic signs and markers more like guidelines or suggestions rather than hard and fast rules, which lets you see all the free real estate available to you. Lane splitting or filtering will save you lots of time in cities by allowing you to skip massive amounts of traffic. Yes, I know it's illegal in a lot of places, and I know that some of you are very good boys who never speed or turn without signaling or break any other minor traffic law and don't want to run the risk of getting a ticket. I found that lane splitting is very challenging to enforce, even if you pass a cop while doing it, because there really isn't any way for a normal cop car to catch up to you in gridlocked traffic. A motorcycle cop might be able to chase you down, but it sometimes seems like the bike cops are the most lenient towards enforcing lane splitting. And maybe it's because those guys do it all the time, and so realize it's not an inherently or insanely dangerous thing. That said, know that lane splitting isn't always the best play, and the risk of scraping up your bike or someone else's car on a super sketchy split probably isn't worth the potential time savings. Merging into and out of busy traffic is something you'll be doing all the time in cities, and a motorcycle makes this much easier. Large lines tend to form around on-ramps, off-ramps, and turns, which end up backing up unrelated traffic traveling in the same direction. Instead of attempting to optimize lane width, most people just merge in as soon as they can in order to avoid any awkwardness of trying to merge closer to the point they actually need to. Because, let's be honest, there are a lot of assholes who feel entitled and like other people are trying to put one over on them, and so would attempt to block out merging traffic. On a motorcycle though, you can fit much later down the line, even when people try to block you out. People merging in will usually try to maintain a short distance between the car in front of them until they feel like other cars aren't going to pull in. It's as easy for a bold motorcyclist to slide into those tight spaces as it is for a middle-aged man in a failing marriage to slide in the DMs of a 23-year-old recent college grad. Even if people actively try to wedge you out, you can still sit in the margins of the lane and find space later, either once it opens up after the turn or by overtaking the next vehicle that leaves open space. Now, when I wedge in, I try to match my speed using just engine braking. The reason for this is, I'm trying to avoid panicking the car I merge in front of, which I could do if I suddenly get in front of them and then immediately get on my brakes. I am acutely aware that this is the opposite of what a lot of people will tell you to do, which is instead to immediately tap the brakes when you merge in to ensure people see you. But there are two reasons why I do not think this is a good idea. I think of not getting on my brakes as a way of injecting some reciprocal courtesy to the car I just slid in front of, that then might reduce the amount of animosity other people feel towards me. More importantly though, if you're positioned correctly after merging in and paying attention to the vehicle behind you, because that's probably the most likely thing to smash into you at this point, you're going to be ready to make maneuvers to protect yourself anyway. Depending on your bike, the gear you're in, and how comfortable you are with engine braking, you might need to practice this a bit. You're going to often find yourself stuck in a jam up, wanting to get out into other lanes that are moving faster. Many times this is going to be on the freeway, where early mergers create traffic in a lane that connects to an exit, and surrounding lanes might be going 40, 50, or 60 miles per hour faster than the sitting traffic. A motorcycle's improved acceleration allows you to merge out and get to the speed of traffic quicker and safer than a car. This is about the only time I don't head check, because there really isn't enough time and visibility to do so. Instead, I create some distance between the vehicle in front of me, get to the edge of the lane so I can see as far as possible with my mirror until I see a gap that I can reasonably accelerate into. Now, you might freak out the car directly behind you in the lane you're pulling into, because even if they are intensely paying attention, it's very hard to pick out a motorcycle turn signal in a wall of slow traffic. So, accelerate as fast as possible until you're at a normal following distance from the car directly ahead of you, so that the car that you just merged in front of hopefully doesn't feel the need to panic brake. There's lots of reasons people might randomly stop or block traffic in front of you, which leads to more jam-ups. Waiting for people to parallel park on a single lane road, a driver getting confused and almost missing a turn and then merging halfway into another lane, people opening up their doors or loading vehicles. The reasons are endless. A motorcycle makes it easier to get around these drivers, either by passing if the lane is wide enough, quickly moving into the opposite direction if it's safe, using auxiliary lanes like the bike or bus lanes discussed earlier, or sometimes maybe a sidewalk or a pedestrian area. I mentioned how common and intrusive construction is. I've seen streets closed down in Seattle for years as a seemingly precautionary measure while they build some 50-story office building. There's also cones, barrels, movable barriers, and some styles of fencing that successfully ward off cars from these areas, but they can't stop one bikey boy. Now, the fact that I end up with 2 to 5 nails in my tires per year might have some connection to my willingness to traverse construction blocked areas, so maybe consider how much time you're saving before you go riding through some half-demolished building. These tactics are the ways that I have learned to navigate the cities that I've spent most of my time in. But every city is unique, and there are definitely other ways to optimize your travel you've probably seen. If there's something I missed or a tactic specific to your city, drop it in the comment because I'm always looking to optimize more. In recent years, and especially now with COVID reducing the amount, I've actually started to really enjoy the challenges of riding downtown Seattle. I realize this maybe isn't the most timely point to release a video about navigating dense traffic since many cities now are the least populated they've been in a long time. I'm also sorry this took a while. There have been some life situations that's got me doing self-care practices more often than usual, and it leaves me less time to do my hobbies that are really just part-time jobs that pay very, very poorly. If you're one of the fortunate people less impacted by the shit show our country's call a pandemic response, except New Zealand. Damn, you guys got it figured out. And can spare a few bucks to support this video on Patreon, I appreciate that. If not, no sweat. I hope this video gave you a few minutes of entertainment to distract you from a hell world. Wear a mask, ride fast, and take chances.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
What?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
YouTube?
A little bit.
Race me down here.
Ah.